I don't know, this Title 10
So about
thing.
the Title 10?
Yeah, please tell us about it.
Well, I mean, yeah. So it essentially they tried already, as people probably know, as part of their repeal and replace the ACA to completely defund Planned Parenthood to a point where Medicaid would not be able to cover using Planned Parenthood, and that would have been a much bigger blow even than this. But for the Title 10 funds, it basically allows states to pull funds from being used for birth control family planning. And this is, I guess, the closest they can get. I didn't see the exact.
Well, it's
votes.
not birth. It's not even birth. No federal funds are allowed to be used for abortion. So
Well, that's already the law.
That's already
Right.
law. So basically, it says the U.S. government gives funds to states earmarked for Planned Parenthood as part of providing, because through Medicaid payments, essentially,
Right.
providing
Non-abortion. Yeah.
healthcare issues for women because these clinics are in places where there's no other options for women to get healthcare, broad healthcare, and broad-based healthcare, and this
Were
basically
you saying healthcare for broad? Is
right,
that what you're
exactly, and this basically allows right-wing reactionary states to cut that funding to Planned Parenthood.
It's not, yeah, and it ends up not being just right-wing reactionary states, sadly, because, again, we have to all remember, and I'm reminded of this daily living in one of these states, that with what Republicans accomplished in 2010, we're talking about Pennsylvania, although at least they've got a Democratic governor now, but we're talking about Michigan, we're talking about Ohio, we're talking about, Arizona, we're talking about plenty of swing states where Republicans gerrymandered their way to still massively controlling these states, and yeah, they can cut the funding that's going to Planned Parenthood. So this was sort of like their second choice, a way to still at least stop funds in some places from going to Planned Parenthood, hurting them because they couldn't pull off the overall deal. And the real pathetic shame of it is that Mike Pence was the tie-breaking vote on it. They can only get 50 votes. The two that I remember speaking out against it, shockingly, were women, not shockingly, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. I'm assuming they're the two that didn't vote for it. But I think some people better remind, in 2018, Dean Heller of Nevada and Jeff Flake of Arizona, who are both in swing states, particularly Nevada, which is trending well to the left. I mean, pathetic. Heller sort of tries to sell himself as a reasonable moderate, and all they're doing with this is hurting women. And as I said earlier, Mike Pence, he won't sit alone in a room with a woman while he's cutting their health care.
Right.
He'll just sit alone in a room filled with old white guys while he's cutting their health care.
They literally had to wheel Johnny Isaacson in from back surgery. He used a walker, apparently, to get in there to vote to defund women's health care. I mean, that is...
it's weird.
It's that type of commitment you like to see, right? I mean, that's
it's weird.
Nuts.
It's weird because Johnny Isaacson, from what I hear, is still getting paid, even though he had to have let's call it health care emergency that he wasn't planning for and had to leave. But it's weird. He still gets his money, almost as if like some people get paid sick leave care even when they're not showing up for work due to an operation they weren't counting on. It's a very strange phenomenon.
Well, he's very, very fortunate guy that he works in such a generous
I know I've heard
employer.
him say how that businesses shouldn't be required to do that. So it's interesting. I almost would think he wouldn't accept that kind of thing for himself, being the honorable man that he is.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's also talk about this. What's going on in the environment at this point, because the deconstruction of the administrative state, as Steve Bannon talked about. I mean, this is where it hurts the most. And even though there's going to be a lot of court cases and the sort of unraveling of our climate change mitigation strategy, as anemic as it is, even though that's going to be hard to do, it's the big issue is it's sending a broader message to the rest of the world that we're no longer on board with these programs. So
that's the bigger.
You're a sucker if you are.
believe it or not, I think is the sixth biggest economy in the world. California, who's moving forward on a lot of the things we're backing off on, can mitigate a lot. When you think about the state being, 1/7 or whatever it is of the population of the United States, you throw in New York, who I've heard now rumbling is going to move in a very positive direction on that, and that's not. Those are just two states. There are others. That's not to say, look, the federal government's still a federal government, and it's going to hurt in serious ways. But at least we can mitigate somewhat the policy. But what you're saying is exactly right. It's the message. The message that's sent is loud and clear, and all it does is it encourages others to jump off the bandwagon or not jump on. And it's just such a crisis in leadership. It's pathetic. So I mean, this was expected. Scott Pruitt? It wasn't like there was a smoke screen, no pun intended,
right.
if you will. We knew who they were putting there. We've known for a long time what their policies are. And again, to Donald Trump, he couldn't care either way. If this is going to make the people who are supporting him happy, that's what he's for, But it is watching them deconstruct it administratively, watching them bring the Scott, what the hell is his name, Rick Scott plan to town, where the people are no longer allowed to even mention it.
Right.
It's not to be. I mean, now we're talking about free speech too. It's not to be talked about. It's not to be. I mean, these guys are such hypocrites. Money is speech, but speech isn't speech, I guess.
Hey, everybody, Sam Seder here.
Donald Trump is a bad guy. Believe me, it's true.
It is true, and you can subscribe to this channel by subscribing to this channel. It's true.